Welcome to the Reimagine podcast. Each week, give yourself 30 minutes and meet the people working hard to create the future of insurance today.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hey, thanks for coming. I'm Paul Tyler, Chief Marketing Officer here at NASA Financial Group, and been leading some of our innovation efforts over the years. Laura, I think have you met everybody in the room probably at this point?
I've definitely emailed everyone in this room. So thank you for responding to my email. Xavier, it's nice to see you up here in Connecticut.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming today.
Yeah. Laura's been sort of spearheading our work with our incubator over the last 4 or 5 years, and now is really driving our brand and innovation efforts. So this is this for Innovation Week, is this day 2 or day 4? I'm not sure how we're counting.
Yeah, so it's dog years at this point. This is officially day 3, but day 2 of this week.
The best day.
It is the best day.
Yeah, definitely the best. So how many of you went to any of the other events that we've put on the event? Michelle? Yeah, Laura, obviously, yeah. Yeah, Frank, and I think, and people. So anyway, we're really excited. This is kind of just an idea. We said, hey, why isn't somebody doing this? And everybody Michelle said, why not? And I would say it's been a great collective effort from a lot of different organizations, a lot of whom are represented here in the room. So thank you. And I hope that this is like the first week of many in the future. And I don't see why we won't. The room's a little too big for intros, but before we kind of go into our panel, everybody who works for NASA, do you mind raising your hand? We got to have a good group here from inside our building. We have a representative from Conning, right? Conning, and startup community. Thanks for coming and joining us. Also, welcome Smetra. Julie, Smetra's been a great partner as we go. Warning, as I've told people here at NASA, if you're here, I may be pulling you in for, commentary and comments. We hope to keep this interactive. We are going to record the session. Our intention is cut this up and put this on a podcast. So, if you continue to speak, this will reflect your acceptance of terms and conditions. Our compliance department's not here, but I'll step up to that role. So anyway, great panel. This is a interesting mix of past, present, and future for our business. As you all know, the actuaries, Tom, I say is the actuaries are the nuclear engine of the submarine, and I think we're in the boat building. I think the metaphor is appropriate. Would you agree?
Sounds great.
Yeah. But sometimes that nuclear engine, when you actually start to get into it, it's a little sometimes kind of rough. It feels like the wash machine isn't quite balanced, but it works. So, we have sort of the legacy actuarial models. Machine learning has sort of crept into a lot of aspects of this, and we'll go into the machine learning aspect of what's taken place. And then, we have some amazing computing opportunities in the future with quantum, which probably requires us to not only rethink where we're headed, not only get to where we're going, but probably rethink where we will have to be with our data and with our technology. So with that, why don't we just go along and introduce ourselves, and Mike, why don't we start with you?
So my name is Mike DiDonato. I work at UConn, and I have 2 roles. One is as business development manager for the tech park, and the second is as the project manager for the Quantum Connecticut initiative that we're pursuing in this state.
Francesco Rosigliato. I'm a senior associate at Advanced ET and the technology lead on the business recruitment team.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me for this distinguished panel. And my name is Sanjeev Nayak. I'm a PhD in physics and have 10 years experience in quantum research. Recently on board to the Quantum Connecticut initiative that Mike just mentioned about. And I am a program specialist on quantum technologies there. my role in this job is to identify the knowledge base and enhance the quantum ecosystem of the universities, the Yale and University of Connecticut, and also try to facilitate faculty engagements and make this quantum CT program a success.
Yeah, thank you for, thanks so much for coming. I think the quantum, we've got a number of real interesting areas here. One is, I think, UConn and Yale are doing some exceptionally interesting work in the quantum computing field. And Francesco, maybe we just kind of lead off with you and sort of talk about where does this fit in terms of the whole innovation ecosystem here in the state of Connecticut?
So I'll just start by saying quantum computing or quantum technology, I view it really as a massive economic opportunity for Connecticut. And that's what AdvanceCT is here to do. I'll actually give a brief overview of AdvanceCT. We are Connecticut's nonprofit economic development organization. We work hand in glove with the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development, but we're also member-based organizations of Connecticut companies committed to growing the Connecticut economy. So our top line objectives are promoting investment and job creation, both by helping our Connecticut industries grow and expand, but also by recruiting and attracting new businesses to Connecticut. So to that point, to go back to the quantum, I view it as a massive economic opportunity. We have some of the highest concentrations of virtually every class of engineer in the country: nuclear, mechanic, aerospace, and about a dozen more. We have two leading universities in Yale and UConn that are furthering quantum technology and quantum research. They have quantum talent that can support that research and also commercialize it. We have supportive and collaborative state government and business support systems. We're located in the center of the Northeast, access to major markets in New York, Boston, access to mainland USA, but also access to Europe, where a lot of quantum technology and quantum development is also occurring. In addition, we also have lower costs compared to other regions that are growing their quantum ecosystems, regions such as Washington, D.C., San Francisco, Boston. These regions are all more expensive in terms of quality of life, cost of doing business. So we really have all of the right ingredients. In addition to Connecticut's primary industries, Connecticut's primary sectors are some of the ones that will be the first to benefit from advances in quantum technology, and also the ones that will benefit the most from quantum technology. So all of these ingredients are really everything we need to succeed as world leaders. If we can come, to the table, public, private, academic, unite, and then also go outwards and tell the Connecticut story, and we could really have something big that could pay dividends in the decades to come.
All right. Sanjeev, my iPhone 15 is showing up in 2 weeks on my doorstep. When am I going to be able to, pre-order my quantum computer?
Well, I can say that UConn is a top-tier research institute. We have world-class faculties. I can name a few of them. From computer science and engineering, Dr. Sangutharawa Rajashekaran and Walter Kravak. They're working on quantum problems. On the physics side, naturally, quantum is tied to physics. Alexander Balaski and Leah Ferreira dos Santos, they are very prominent. And there is a nexus between what they are doing versus what quantum initiative is coming forward. And we already have the knowledge base, both in University of Connecticut and Yale University. Yale University is a little bit forward because they have a very organized program coming up, since last couple of years. They already have established leadership in quantum science, but UConn has such a big thing, and as Francisco just said, that we have more engineers than Yale University. I just came to know about that recently. So UConn is very much placed into providing that knowledge base to the quantum ecosystem, and this quantum city program, I will tell you that we are making some strategic developments to align the whole thing into a channel, and that is where we are going to come out in a big way. Now, you mentioned about when you are expecting a device. We are still at a very beginning stage in terms of commercialization, but I can tell you there are models, there are prototype devices that are functional, and many of the big businesses like Amazon, Google have got one of them, and they are doing whatever they call as quantum, but still we do not have a commercialized product yet. We have to wait, but that doesn't mean we have to wait for a product. We have to, as you know, develop our workforce to hop into the new market which will come up abruptly when it comes. So that is where this type of meeting makes sense, that we want to come together and educate ourselves and prepare ourselves for the next big thing. It won't be the same thing as you see. We have to go through a learning process, and we want to get prepared.
Yeah. Now, your background is physics. I think the good news is we've got a number of people who are mathematicians, math backgrounds, not me, but I think some not. How maybe you can just explain, what's different about quantum computing than sort of this traditional computing today we have with transistors shrunk to chips, with standard algorithms that we've been using for quite a while.
Yeah. From a technology perspective, I can tell you that a classical computer that we are having in the present day, it works on a 0-1 type of bit information, but a quantum computer will work on qubit, which is a very different kind. It can hold infinite number of information in it, not just 0 and 1. But coming to more practical applications, I think what we are going to get advantage is lightning fast speed with large volume of data. And that is where the classical computers, although they're doing the job they do, but we can still get much more in an exponential factor of speed enhancement with quantum computers. The second aspect is the cryptography. In cryptography, we rely on special algorithms for this classical computer system to develop or maintain the encryption. But a quantum system is naturally cryptic, and we can take advantage of that quantum mechanical principle to develop cryptic signals to be sent or data to be stored. So this is the second advantage I would pitch on quantum technologies. So lightning fast speed, large volume of data processing instantly, and the cryptography.
Which kind of brings us back to insurance. Allie was going to join us. She had to count, unfortunately couldn't make it at the last moment. I think, Laura, did we send the paper to people or make it available on the site?
Yeah, we're going to follow up today with the paper for everyone.
Yeah, so the Society of Actuaries did a paper with about, I think, 8 or 9 authors on the applications of machine learning to actuarial evaluations. Now, lucky enough to have a couple actuaries here. I'll put you on the spot. Allison, do you want to tell people what you do here at the company?
Sure.
Yeah.
So from a machine learning perspective, I would say we're just...
And sorry, Allison, tell them what you do.
Sorry. Hi, everybody. I work at NASA. I'm in our actuarial / finance department, and I head up our data analytics team on the business side. And so because we were kind of founded out of our actuarial area itself, like a lot of the data storage and data processing and studies that we do, I'm going to say the word experience studies a few times, which is like a way to analyze the data that you've collected on your policyholders or certain things, policyholder behavior. We've started to take some of the way we did our classical experience studies and push them into predictive analytic models, which use some of the fundamentals of machine learning, if you will, to try and better predict how our policyholders are going to behave.
Yeah. Hey, Julie, do you want to introduce yourself and maybe just kind of tell us like where Symetra is on kind of the journey of looking at machine learning and for modeling?
Definitely. Hi, I'm Julie Schumann. I am at Symetra, and I'm the head of group life and disability valuation. So we set the reserves, and we're, I wouldn't say behind, but rustic might be a nicer word on what we're doing. It's interesting, our data area is the same where it came out of actuarial, so we have a lot of actuaries in data and analytics. But group in general has relied more on Excel, Microsoft Access in the past. Now that actuaries are getting more trained on all these tools, we're moving into Python and SQL. But I think where we have more advantages is how do we help the rest of the organization. So like for group, claims is big. We have a lot of claims to manage. And the data is tough to grab because it's in text fields within the claim system. So that's where we have the biggest opportunities to use tools like this, is to get better claim data and help our claims team manage the claims. things. And then that makes my job easier because the reserves go down and they're more predictable too over time.
Yeah.
May I add to that?
Yes.
So I think it's really exciting that you guys are using these tools to better your business. I think that with quantum, there's going to be a whoa moment, kind of like the first time you sat down and ChatGPT just came out and like slapped us all in the face. And like suddenly it was like, whoa, suddenly it's here. We weren't really expecting it. And we knew it was coming, but we didn't know it was going to come when it did. And even now that it's come, it's not quite there, but you still had that whoa moment. And I think we're going to have that same moment for quantum. It's just going to be a question of when. And the power of this will be surprising and stark, even if we're prepared. And so while it's awesome that we're using these tools, I think that our general hope in all of us being here is let's get prepared and get ready for that moment, because when it comes, it's gonna hit hard.
Okay, I'm going to double click a little more on that one. So prepared. What does prepared mean? What's the role of what role are the universities UConn and Yale playing? And the next order question is, what role should all of we be playing here?
Preparedness is definitely the early preparedness. You're a triathlete, I believe.
I'm not sure after this weekend. Maybe former.
I think that it's the type of thing where if you had on your calendar and you knew you were going to run a triathlon in a year, you better get to work now. And yes, the triathlon, the starting gun will take place sometime in the future. But what do you need to do now? You need to start to understand training practices. You need to research the very light carbon fiber bikes or the best sneakers. You're prepared on the equipment side, and you have a regimen of exercise to kind of approach. And when we're talking about preparedness, we're talking about for quantum, it's really different. It's really new. If you take a computer scientist and put them in front of a quantum computer, they're going to flounder. And because it's entirely different. And I think that one of the problems is that we're so familiar with our traditional classic computers that we kind of see quantum as the next step in traditional computers. And it's really not. It's going to be vastly different. Sanjeev kind of described the difference between the qubits and the standard bits. And while at the technical level that seems very straightforward, the modeling capabilities are just black and white. They're totally different between what you can accomplish with these things. So when we're talking about preparedness, I would say we need to understand our businesses, and we need to understand how this technology will impact us. Because I think there's a few really easy cases, and those are the industries that are probably already knee deep in exploring quantum technologies. But it is going to impact all of us. So preparedness, I would say, first step is just start to look at it and start to understand how it will impact your business. The second part of your question was UConn and Yale's.
Yeah, I think what preparations, if you were running an actuarial organization or an IT organization, what are the steps you'd say, you should be taking them now in terms of training, education, data structure, thinking through how you're structuring your data today?
I would say resource investment would be the first course of action, because quantum is, you mentioned a few kind of keywords that are related to quantum, like data and ideas of security are kind of first and foremost in the public's awareness of what quantum provides. But it extends far beyond that, and I wouldn't even begin to suggest that I'm the right person to make those recommendations. However, connecting with researchers or with your industry colleagues who are pursuing the same interests, there's a benefit to exploring how it will impact you. So looking at, say, insurance, quantum will change risk assessment. Quantum will change fraud detection. Optimization is an area where quantum just totally knocks it out of the park. And so imagine if your competitors had a perfect optimization algorithm or a perfect fraud detection algorithm. You would want to be part of that. Or you would want to get that first mover advantage. And that's where we need, as ourselves, as business people, we want to get ourselves up front. And as a community, we want to make sure we're prepared so that we're not lapped before the starting gun has gone off.
Yeah, Francesco, just to be very insurance centered here, what should the insurance community in particular be doing to make sure that we help facilitate, support, and are poised to take advantage of the technology over the next 5 years?
Well, I think initially, just things like this, raising awareness, figuring out, understanding what parts of your business can be improved by advances in quantum technology, like Mike said. That's really, at this point, I think, is the focus, is just learning, being open-minded, and trying to figure out where that overlap exists. I've been racking my mind over the past couple of days to try to think, since I'm in between the technology and the business, metaphors that can compare. And the one I came up with this morning on my way up was quantum technology at this point, as opposed to classical computing, is very much like when the first cars came out and there were still horses. Horses were better than the first cars. All the infrastructure that existed was for horses, and so it was much easier to get around with a horse, even though cars existed. And even though people maybe could see that cars eventually will take over, right now, horses are better. So in that same way, use our classical computing systems, understand their limitations, understand where quantum computing can then eventually fit into those models, and then when that oh my god moment happens, exactly, okay, we can implement here, this person knows about this solution, and they can start implementing that quantum solution into this area. So I think just being curious and just staying up to date on what's happening, what's new, what's changing, and overlapping that with what your responsibilities are. When that moment comes, you'll be ready to take the right steps.
Yeah.
I'd just like to add to what Francisco just said. He picked up a nice point that horses were better than the first car. And actually, we are in that situation. You cannot imagine how much energy is spent on data centers. Google, Amazon, numerous. But if you see the current prototype that we're building, the quantum technology is based on two main principles. One is superconducting current-based rings, and another is frozen ion charge, like laser light is signed into each atoms, and that is frozen, and then you develop. To do all these things, you have to cool the whole mechanism to like 2 Kelvin, and that is where all the energy is gone. And now we are in the first car, and horses are better than the first car. But things will change very soon, and as the technology picks up, we are going to change completely how the energy consumption is made, and that is a good thing for the climate thing that we are talking about. Like if we have easy sources of energies or more energy efficient world, we don't have to rely so much on the fossil fuels.
Yeah, well, good question, yes.
So kind of a question that I know you're saying, you made the comment that you can't really compare like a classical computer to a quantum computer, but if you had to kind of like put it in perspective like that, how many classical computers would one quantum computer replace? Like, is there a measurement like that? There's some energy too, and reducing energy use, and you have to maybe.
So far, we are able to put together, quoting Google and Amazon, at best several hundreds of qubits together. To really build a practical computer, we should be talking about millions of qubits. So that is where the bottleneck is still there. I get your point. I don't have an answer for your question, but it's
to put it in context. There's one experiment that Google did, I believe, in 2019. So with one of the first quantum computers, I think it only had a few qubits or a few dozen qubits. They tested an algorithm that took a classical computer, that would take a classical computer 47 years to compute, and that quantum computer did it in, I think, 6 seconds. So to put that in perspective, again, it's very niche algorithms, very specific scenarios.
Specific mathematical problem that
right. But where we can, apply that, the it's exponential. It's mind blowing how much different it is.
May I give an application? So again, we think about quantum. We think about quantum computing a lot, but consider chemistry. So for chemistry, a really good chemist is still kind of doing experimental work. I want to design a new material. Well, what could possibly make this material stronger? Well, I have some experience here. Let's try it. And then they make an alloy and they test it. And it didn't quite give us what we wanted. Let's try something else. With quantum, you can model systems in natural systems really beautifully. So imagine if you could model new compounds. Now, a computer could say, here's your recipe. Done, new material, the strength you want, everything you need. And it's just right there. And so this is something that we can't do currently at all. And suddenly the opportunities are vast. So new materials. Think about pharmaceutical industry, new drugs, new understanding how drugs are going to interact with human bodies. Forget animal testing, it's gone. We could just model it exactly and understand how it's going to interact with the human body. These are the things that classical computers can't even approach. They're not even in the game. And now we have a whole new game, and it's going to open up incredible possibilities.
Good question on that. Yesterday we heard a speaker talk, and they were discussing AI hallucinations. So does that come into play here? Is there such a thing as quantum hallucination? So I like the idea of no more animal testing. I'm all for that. But how do we know that what we're receiving is true?
Anyone else want to take that one?
I think the physics professor should answer this one.
No pressure.
I was actually going to jump in on this because I have a physics background too. This is from, 30 years ago. My only refereed papers was when I was a research assistant for some professors, and I got a byline on their paper. And I was modeling carbon nanotubes, where we did some molecular, but we didn't have quantum. It was just regular C programs and that kind of thing. We were doing carbon atom by carbon atom and doing some simplifications. And I was getting results when I was running these, and it was very slow. And I'm sure quantum computing would do it very fast. That I didn't believe the strength that we were getting out of the modeled molecules on carbon nanotubes. Now, my understanding is now that they make them, it is actually pretty strong. Probably not as strong as I modeled them, but this is the issue, is like you have these models and then you have reality. You still have to have some test against reality sometimes.
That is where you need humans.
Yeah.
Yeah. The things that we simulate in computers is actually some kind of mathematical model that humans have designed, scientists have designed. And if the model is efficient, it is able to predict the properties properly. And I think I'm still in this researcher role partly, and I see that the better the modeling is, the better the output is. So that way we will always need humans, and there is always work for us to do.
Well, to Laura's question on hallucinations, because I think this is a great physics question. Gee, is it real or is it not real in a quantum computing model? How do we think about this? You said it's not ones and zeros. It's not yes and no.
There are certain aspects of quantum which is not within our logical thinking, like superposition principles, the other one will be tunneling effect, and we can come out with many things. I still want to think about it to really give a statement about quantum hallucination. But what I can clearly pitch here is that we were talking about the preparedness, and we should be also aware that the education system has to catch up. Now, imagine kids are not taught video games at school, but I'm sure everyone has experienced, or your sons and daughters are so quick than you are. What we want to really generate is they're speaking about this superposition principles, tunneling effects, that comes naturally when they are growing up from a younger age to have this quantum concept. Presently, we are having quantum education at a very late stage in our education system. And that is where we want to put efforts also to, help our kids grow through that kind of concepts, that they are very much prepared to what they are trying to see the world.
Yeah, mine's coming through Apple TV on the Foundation. I don't know, Isaac Asimov's book, but it's actually a very good show for explaining quantum principles, which is kind of astonishing. So I guess if we, since you've just talked a little more about the preparedness, wow, we're doing R, wow, we're working on Python. These languages are not like, they weren't born yesterday. It's taking a long time for it to work its way through the education, create infrastructure around this. Maybe talk to us, we understand the hardware, there's a hardware problem, but how much different will these algorithms look like, and what work is being done so that, Alice can download it, do a pip install, quantum, I don't know what.
Yeah. Paul, I'd like to jump
Yes,
on
please.
your question,
Yeah.
because I have a computer science background, and that experience, Mike, you had mentioned, where a computer scientist is like, oh, I'm a fish out of water now. I attempted to do, I did the equivalent of Hello World in Q# a few years ago. And so to Paul's question, how do you go from the usual computing, actuarials and other people within, not just insurance, but any industry do, how do you go, from, so like with the Hello World program, you start with Hello World, you get it on your screen. And then you say, okay, what's my problem that I'm trying to solve? And we have our normal thinking. So if I'm a mathematician, I'm going to start putting in some formulas. If I'm doing word processing, I'm going to have some things in place to clean up my text. But in the case of, looking at Q# and seeing, it's not about putting Hello World on the screen, it's about playing with qubits. How do you get to that point where we start doing something practical? In this case, you're talking about modeling. I get the modeling, but there's a big leap from thinking about a program in terms of qubits to something management can understand, in that, they're always asking how much and how long, how many people. And so how do you, in the terms of preparing for using quantum computers, how do you get to that point where you're demonstrating something practical, an approach or a problem you can solve practically with this technology now? And then how do you think about it in terms of using it in a production environment?
So I think there's two pieces. There's how do you prepare yourself as a business, and then how do we prepare ourselves as a society? For business, one of the things that we're doing with Quantum Connecticut is we're trying to connect academic researchers who have some of this background with industry to try and solve a problem and share information and figure things out. Because I don't think anybody's going to do it alone, or at least they'll be a lot smarter than me. For a society, it's about curriculum building. So the Quantum Connecticut Initiative, which is our pitch to the National Science Foundation, that we're going to try to build this regional innovation engine. And there's 4 big pieces to that. The first is research. We've talked about that a little bit. The second is translation of that research into practice. That's the industry connection. The third is workforce development and education. And that's where we have brought in experts in education into the program to say, how can we train our next generation of students in even K through 12? Sanjeev was talking about video games and getting students who outshine us with whether it's a computer controller or your remote control. We need them to be as proficient in understanding the quantum environment from a fundamental standpoint. And then there's an ecosystems piece, that is the 4th piece of the innovation engine, where we're trying to build out networks. And so now it's not just about building a curriculum, it's about making connections to the school systems, the higher education systems in the state schools, the technical schools, because it's easy to look at quantum and think about, an Einstein figure at a chalkboard drawing stuff, but it's going to impact electricians and plumbers, computer scientists, It's going to impact everybody. We need everyone to catch up. And so the problem that you faced with your Hello World Challenge is something that we're going to be facing across the board. And kind of that's what we're here to try and figure out.
Yeah, the nature of our jobs have changed over past 30 years. You can make out that what type of jobs were more important and highly paid during that time versus what now. No one 30 years ago imagined that you could sit down on a chair, on a table the whole day, but you're earning big bucks. But now it is. And coming to the technical aspect of what you asked, what we see in the interface is not exactly what we are putting into the computer. There is a machine language that is called assembly language that takes care of. So there are scientists, technicians who will have to deal with that when they interface with quantum computer. But at the forefront, you will see that some kind of user interface is there, which is more user-friendly, depending on how the software is developed. And but you're going to see the difference in the speed, in certain type of email exchanges. You want to make it cryptic and other things. Yeah, the encryption processes can be more efficiently managed.
So this technology, we should think of it in terms of layers. So quantum might be at the core of it, but then we have several other layers, the outermost being a user interface layer. So it almost sounds like there might be a combination of quantum computing with traditional computing to connect all of these pieces together.
At some point, I would imagine it has to transition that way. For example, let me pick this one that we still have this iPhone made of silicon chips, but there are many materials, at least more than 20 materials that can compete silicon in terms of efficiency. But we don't adopt that. Why? Because the industry do not want to switch it overnight. There is so much of investment gone into making the factories to develop the chips and other things. The industry do not want to just cover it up and introduce a new one. So similarly, I would also, for my personal opinion would be, it has to pass through a smooth transition where at some point we will have both the quantum and classical. Quantum might be more expensive to procure. Classical computers are cheaper. That way, some investments will still be active in classical computers, but overall, it will switch to quantum computers.
Okay, and I guess just to keep going where Mike was headed with this, in terms of, we're used to like, it's this number, it's that number. If I were to, like, like Alice and I doing a logistic regression on, these 20 factors, and I'm going to end up with probability of that with this data set, that this is going to be a yes or no. Will that fundamentally change in quantum computing, or will the logistic regression will be something different in quantum computing, where I'm getting fast results or I'm getting very different sets of results?
No, I believe that that is related to the question that
Mike,
it is up to the models. What you're working here is a model.
Right.
You certainly don't want to change the model overnight because it has shown enormous good results and you very much trust it. You're going to do the math as you do it. It's only the computer that changes.
Okay.
So like changing a new desktop or a new laptop, that changes. And if the industry want to go towards more sophistication, they are free to go. But that is independent of a quantum computer being there. The only thing is they take advantage of the quantum computer in terms of speed and encryption.
Yeah.
What you want to do is you want to design your algorithm as much as possible before the computer becomes available. Because when the computer becomes available, if you start then, you're already too late. But if you can design an understanding, you can look at this setup. It's from the standpoint of the bits, you can get to the point where you can understand how to manipulate them to the point where you get a result that you're interested in. And if you do that work in advance, then when suddenly those bits, the science catches up and says, we've made this stable and we now have a cloud quantum computer, congratulations, log in here. You want to be ready and have your algorithm prepared for testing and for execution. So at that point, you can get the results that you want.
Michelle.
So, not to be doomsday.
Can you tell people who you are and what you do?
Sure. Hi everyone, my name is Michelle Cody. I am also at UConn School of Business. I work with both faculty and students that are building new businesses and try to help them develop a business model, get them off the ground. I've also been working with Paul and Laura and an incredible team of over 30 people here in the city of Hartford to create an intentional innovation community over the last 6 years. So the foundations of that are in insurtech, digital health, and advanced manufacturing, given the industry composition that we have here in the area. And not to be doomsday, but every insurtech conference that I've gone to over the last 6 years, and I'm not an insurance person, right? There's been some conversation about the threat of non-insurance players disrupting the insurance industry. Google's, Amazon's, what can they do, can they get their hands on that will be able to assess risk, improve the customer experience, take business away from traditional insurers. Mike, your point about impact, what should we be ready for, and how can we leverage the capabilities that this is bringing to add an extra moat around the industry advantage that we have here?
There are some big risks, and disruption is coming. Trying to approach it proactively is pretty much the best path that I could recommend, because we don't know what's going to happen. It could get a little crazy. So let's make sure that we're on the positive side of crazy when things settle down. And there are a lot of risks associated with the amount of power that's coming with quantum. And people are thinking about those risks, not just from the standpoint of disruption, but from the standpoint of bad actors, from the standpoint of security is a huge piece of the game. So there's a lot that can change, and the more you understand, the better prepared you are to address those. But I wish I could say everybody in the room is nice and protected and safe, but I would say the people who approach this with the most care are the ones who are most likely to come out on the other side with a very profitable model that's better than what we have right now.
Are there specific capabilities that you would look out for? Like, so given how the technology operates, what are some of the algorithms, the models that people may be thinking about as first potentially disruptive capabilities that we should be thinking about here?
So algorithms, it's kind of funny because we've been using the word algorithms like there's a lot of them, and there really aren't. People get really excited about an algorithm called Shor's algorithm because it accomplished this really incredible thing. We need to develop those algorithms. They're not just out there, and so I don't think there's an answer. I think there's we have to build it, and the time to build is definitely now or yesterday. But we have to build it. But I can't name anything in particular because a lot of these haven't been invented yet.
So you brought up the point earlier about the materials and the chips and the phones. What are some political and global implications that people should be aware of given this conversation? Not necessarily doomsday, but just sensitivities around potential future situations.
Can you please repeat? I missed a certain thing in your question.
Yeah, what are sort of the political implications or
Political.
geopolitical implications of the evolution of this technology?
There is certainly a geopolitical problem when we think about batteries, because we are using lithium and it is mostly mined in China, and the political relationship of China with the United States is not good. That is certainly directly hampering the businesses. In terms of quantum, as I said, there are two main technologies so far, and none of them require any mining process. It's rather tuning process. And achieving the tuning is already a big task because you're going against the forces of nature to get into the atom and get the atom controlled by how you want to deliver it. So the geopolitical aspect will come in terms of encryption, data security, and when we get a super fast computer, that's whatever risk we can assess on that. That is the side of thought that I can bring up in terms of geopolitical risks, and not exactly for the quantum computer itself, but due to quantum computers, certain change in ecosystem that might bring up some risk?
I think there's a race too. We're all racing towards trying to get a stable quantum computer. We're all racing towards achieving successes with quantum technologies in general. And that's one of the things that we are trying to do with Quantum Connecticut, is position Connecticut to be at the forefront of that research and those efforts, because that will position us in a great spot for the future.
To contextualize that one step further as well is, I'll compare the situation with quantum with AI, for example. AI is an evolution of classical computing and really kind of picked up in the last 5 to 10 years, right? Quantum technology is an entirely new frontier. It's more akin, in my mind, to an industrial revolution or the advent of classical computing and how that changed, going from an abacus to a regular computer is a huge jump. In the same way, this is an entirely new frontier in which obviously different countries, different regions are going to compete for supremacy, because achieving that quantum computer, that commercially applicable quantum computer, sooner than your competitors is going to give you numerous advantages, just like nuclear and space and
Correct.
all of these different major frontiers. Countries are competing to be the first one to the finish line.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of geopolitical implications for that.
That is how we can tie up to the geopolitical implications. A recent study has shown that China invests 10 times more on quantum research than United States. That is surprising, but I should also say that United States has caught up on that subsequently, and I don't have the current state of the figures now. And there are a lot of things going on in Europe, in India, in United States. Russia is catching up with all the competition. I fully agree with Francisco that anyone who catches the quantum computer first will have certain advantage, and that can pose some geopolitical risks.
Frank.
My question, and it leads up, this whole leads up to it, is, so this is completely different. This isn't the same, it's a different computer. It's not made the same way. So is Apple doing this? Is Dell doing this? Is this going to be like Tesla came out of nowhere and beat all the car companies? You said there's a race, but from your knowledge of it, do you see this as the people who would be on top of this, like Apple, are on top of it, or do you think it's coming from everywhere?
So big investment right now. There's the companies that you'd expect are there. IBM, Google, all of the tech companies, they're pushing hard. Also the industries that you'd expect, there's a huge defense interest for a lot of obvious reasons. There's an opportunity for innovators and entrepreneurs, and there's a bunch of startups that are showing up and popping up, usually with some specialty within quantum. Quantum is broad, so it's not going to be suddenly there's one company that rules them all. There's lots of facets, and there may be a company that excels in optics for using quantum optics, and there might be a company that excels in quantum computing.
That's
maybe IBM gets out front, or whoever it might be. So I think it's a little bit of both, but it's also a broad enough playing field that there won't be one king of the mountain.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Not always. We have to get prepared. That is where the preparedness is coming, because our economy will change. The way we do things, what jobs are priority now, they may not be a priority anymore. And that way preparedness is more important.
I have a question, kind of actually piggybacking on before on Frank's question. So, Laura, you brought up geopolitical, so it's like macro. You're talking about who's going to be the person at the gate.
You didn't want to buy the stock.
He wants the stock ticker. So mine might be a little more micro or just more local, which is with both advanced CT and quantum CT. Like, what's a real life application? Maybe we don't know yet. Like, I think about some of the regional or maybe state problems like transportation or food distribution, or are there any, I'm just trying to connect the dots for any like applications to solving local problems that aren't necessarily unique to Connecticut. Those are just a couple that come to mind.
Optimization is huge, and that's the first thing that pops to my mind. I don't know if you gentlemen would like to add.
Yeah, I would bring this thing that we may not see any differences in the way of like what we do in everyday life. Like we still eat, we still take transportation, travel, use our car. But in the back side of it, how efficient they are. Imagine how the information technology changed the world. Now the information technology will be much faster. You don't have to wait and scroll your things to load, and it will be much faster than, of course, 5G is faster enough. We are kind of okay with that, but it will be, for big businesses, that's not okay, because they are dealing with a much volume of data. And there are people who have to wait until something is loaded and then they do the work. That is where things will change. Yeah, at the front end, nothing might seem different. We are still living the same life. But at the back end, efficiency, sustainability, these are topics that are coming up very prominently.
I love that. And I heard some statistic recently. It was something like 20% of seeds go to waste. And imagine if you could drop that to 0. Suddenly, that's a huge difference. And every time you pick up an apple or a strawberry at a grocery store, you're essentially taking part in that new efficiency. But to Sanjeev's point, you're still eating an apple.
I'll add one more example. I was at a quantum conference in April of this year, and a company, I believe it was Zapata Computing, did a pilot program with JP Morgan and provided a analysis of their portfolio, and basically it not only considered in the same amount of time, I believe 30% more scenarios, it was able in 75% of cases achieving a better return while also simultaneously achieving a lower drawdown percentage. So again, you might not notice anything different in your 401k, but the company that is utilizing that analysis can deliver better returns because it can optimize for more scenarios and find better solutions.
That makes me think of high frequency trading, and I don't know if people are familiar with that, but I mean, literally people were trying to get their server in that corner of the room instead of this corner of the room, and drilling thousands of miles of new fiber optic cable because they wanted to be able to trade like milliseconds or whatever faster than everybody else.
Sorry, but since you mentioned that, then we have to talk about the flash crash. Okay, and now to be the turd in the punch bowl, none of us have mentioned the regulators, have we? I mean, so one of the things I've done, and so I'm from Conning, not from NASA, and I'm often active, I'm Mary Pat Campbell, and I'm often active in American Academy of Actuaries work groups that work with the NAC. And one is the data analytics and the data science and predictive analytics group. And I know the state of Colorado has put out stuff of where insurers are supposed to be doing testing on certain things to make sure they're not unfairly discriminating in their rates and pricing. And this is life insurance. I mean, property and casualty personal lines, specifically personal auto, has had this problem with like GLMs for decades and credit scoring and that kind of thing. It's been very controversial. We know this is not quantum. This is just regular old, machine learning algorithms that we've had forever. And with accelerated underwriting, we're getting this in life insurance. Well, the regulators are getting very suspicious of all these algorithms that we're doing. And get quantum in there, and they really don't understand what we're doing. I mean, we've got to be really clear in communicating the results that are coming out of our system.
Very correct, very correct. We still haven't made precise law for the artificial intelligence, which is affecting our lives. It is interfering with elections and whatnot. Yeah, so this is
And I was talking about some data fraud issues.
Correct.
That there's a lawsuit coming out of Hartford University right now. It has nothing to do with, it was just Excel spreadsheets, it's not even complicated systems. It's very fraught.
Sorry, one question back,
Yeah, hi. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. So, my question is, what would be the future of blockchain with the advent of quantum computing? Core offering of blockchain lies with cryptography, right?
Yeah, I think blockchain is the one which is going to get the most advantage of the quantum revolution. Because as I mentioned, cryptography is there in the nature of quantum definition, and you don't need to write special algorithm to do encryption. So it is just instantly there. And if the quantum computer comes up, I think blockchain would be the one which it will first benefit.
Yeah, wait, one more. Yeah, no, two more. Go ahead. Yeah.
So a little bit ago, you were talking about like what can insurance companies do to get ahead of it. You know, being in the startup world, I know of numerous companies who are building risk analysis, building these different things. How are insurance companies being more proactive to engage with even like startups and be adding them to the portfolio so that, to the point of Laura that presented, you know, Amazon, Google taking over insurance companies, taking their lunch, for lack of better words, you know, how can you get in with some of these startups and be proactive in that way?
Francesco.
It's tough. I think at the end of the day, you know, the tech companies have a lot of money, a lot of resources, and they have the access to the technology, right? But they don't have access to the generational knowledge of insurance, of, you know,
Right.
that there is something to be said about Hartford being the insurance capital of the world for 200 years, right? It's not something that you can easily take away. And so in that same way, these insurance companies, the best thing I can say is, again, be prepared, know exactly where quantum can fit into your current analyses, current departments, current programs, so that when you do come across that startup or that new technology, or you see, you know, Apple, Google, Amazon announces a certain thing, you're ready to jump on it. And it's a lot easier to adopt a new technology, even though quantum is much different, much more difficult to adopt, but it's a lot more easier to adopt that than to just overnight gain all of this industry knowledge and generational knowledge. So I think if those industries can stay prepared and stay active, you know, they could fend off, you know, your lunchtime bullies.
Was there any other questions right at the top? Go ahead. Yeah.
So actually you mentioned cryptography. So do you think, like, I've realized that these days number of cyber attacks are going up. So do you think quantum computing will be helping with that? Like it will reduce the amount of cyber attacks which are going on?
It is certainly going to help. I do not have an algorithm in my mind that how you want to protect your systems, but you can take advantage of the encryption process of the quantum, which is naturally there, and develop your system and protect your system accordingly. Things will come up, I'm sure about that, but I don't have a clear algorithm to present it to you right away.
There are two approaches that are being researched right now. One is specifically on the security side, looking at how do we protect against quantum attacks, which is the second piece to your question. And one is looking at quantum defenses to quantum attacks. And there's another portion of research that's focused on classical computer defenses to quantum attacks. And both are really important. So just because there's a new technology out there, it, again, kind of coming back to classical computing will still play a role. And right now we can use that in a way to still prepare ourselves for it.
All right. Well, listen, thank you so much. I guess just it's been great. Hopefully you all kind of stick around and get to meet all of you. We've got a great group here. I guess just last question would be sort of final thoughts for this group that's more insurance specific. And Sanjeev, just one I might lead with you is, what should we be learning or reading over the next 3 or 4 months to get the better understanding of what's coming ahead of us?
If you are specifically talking about insurance industry, you certainly want to take a look into the market, which you do. You're the ones who are better at risk assessment and other things, so you just keep looking for that. And the quantum computer might be any time. Of course, I don't see it in a couple of years or like 5 years. I don't have a clear timeline for that. But things are coming up. You want to look out for that. And when it is available, my first thought would be that it will be available as a cloud service. So you quickly take subscription and try to adapt your actuarial codes and other things and take advantage of them.
Don't worry, Tom Culverson. We've already signed up for the early wait list. Okay? Tom's our chief technology officer. Francesco, so how can we get behind what you're doing and really, own this in the insurance community, be leaders of the insurance quantum effort?
So for me and from my role, it's just, whenever there's a new discovery or a new application or something that you're creating, is just communicate that with us in Advanced CT in the state, and we go out and we tell that story. So when I go out to conferences and I meet startups and companies from around the U.S. and around the world, and they're asking me, well, what's going on in Connecticut? What does Connecticut do? And I tell them this story. By the way, it's a good story. It lands really well, especially people who don't know Connecticut. It's just knowing what is going on here at a more specific level that helps me tell the story, and it helps me find companies that are interested in growing here and being part of that ecosystem. So whatever is happening at the universities, at the state, or at the commercial level, working with economic development organizations like Advanced CT, like the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development, is key to advancing that message and growing it both from the inside out and from the outside in. Okay, Mike, call to action for the industry.
Come talk to us. Come talk to us. We are eager to interact with industry in both specific to the Quantum Connecticut Initiative and not. If there is an area where we can connect you to a researcher who has expertise in your industry or what you're trying to do, I'm eager to do that. So the call to action, I would say, is get involved, raise your hand, and let's do this together.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend us on iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more great information about this company and other great startups at imagine.nfg.com.